You know that feeling when you're completely silent, but inside your head, it's just a whirlwind of thoughts? Well, we're going to dive into a really personal story today that gets to the bottom of how an overthinking mind is often made, not born. So let's get right into it. Okay, so this one sentence from the story we're looking at, it just perfectly sets the scene, doesn't it? It's that classic conflict, being super quiet on the outside, but inside, it's just deafeningly loud. I think a lot of us can probably relate to that feeling, even a little bit. All right, so let's start with the first part of this journey, a quiet boy's noise, and this whole idea of an internal-external disconnect. I mean, just think about that for a second. We live in this world that's all about connection, right? Social media, phones, everything. And yet, the feeling described here is one of being totally cut off. It's not about being physically alone. No, it's about being in a crowd of people and feeling like you're watching your own life from a million miles away. A truly deep sense of being isolated inside your own skin. And this really gets to the core of that hidden struggle, doesn't it? On the outside, everything looks fine, totally normal. But underneath that calm surface, it's a whole different story. A broken mind, a heavy heart. It's that painful gap between the person everyone thinks you are and the storm you're actually weathering inside. So you have to ask, right? Where does all this internal noise even start? Well, the story points us back to childhood, to the atmosphere at home, which is described as the place where these seeds were first sown. This is really telling. That feeling of warmth and security that every kid just craves, that they need to feel safe. The writer feels like they never really got that. And we're not talking about a lack of food or a roof over their head. This is about a missing emotional connection, a kind of void that can leave a mark for a long, long time. And the home environment is described as just being filled with tension. We're talking about fights, arguments, but also, look at the last two, silence and sarcasm. Sometimes the silence is the loudest thing in the room, you know? It's this constant simmering stress that's described as slowly starting to shatter a child's mind from within. Just a really powerful way to put it. And this is what happens, right? A kid's brain is just trying to make sense of all that chaos. So it turns inward. You see a question like this: if mom gets upset, does that mean I'm a bad kid? That's a child trying to find a reason for the tension. And the easiest reason to land on is, it must be my fault. That external conflict just gets absorbed and becomes internal self-blame. Okay, so that self-blame leads to a pretty major turning point. This is the moment it all starts to turn inward, when thinking just becomes too much. And here's the path laid out so clearly. Step 1, I stopped talking. Step 2, I stopped expressing. And step 3, I started thinking. It's a devastatingly simple sequence. You pull back, you bottle it all up, and then your mind has to fill that vacuum. Thinking, and pretty soon overthinking, becomes the only coping mechanism you have when letting things out just doesn't feel safe anymore. This brings up a really interesting question, one the writer themselves asks. Was this just a case of being an introvert by nature, or was this about becoming an overthinker because of the circumstances? You know, the classic nature versus nurture debate. Was it a personality trait from birth, or a mindset that was built brick by brick from experience? The story really leans into the idea that it was a response to the environment. So now, this inner world has basically become a battlefield. It's pitched as this constant struggle, this fight between two parts of the self, the heart versus the mind. So on one side, you've got the heart, and the heart's desire is so simple, so human, right? It just wants to talk to someone. It wants to reach out, share what's going on, and just connect. That's all. But then, just as the heart is about to speak, the mind steps in and just shuts it down. Don't speak, it's useless, nothing will change. That voice is so cynical, so dismissive. But you have to remember, it was born from experience. It's a defense mechanism that's trying to protect you from more pain. But in the process, it's become its own kind of prison. And in that battle between heart and mind, the mind almost always wins. The end result is always the same, a retreat. Back into that inner world where it's just you and your thoughts. And let's be clear, this isn't some peaceful Zen-like solitude. It's an isolated echo chamber filled with an endless loop of thinking. So, how does all this stuff from the past carry over into the present? Well, this is where we see how those old patterns become a kind of prison, the lingering echo of what happened before. And this is a really important point. These aren't just filed away as old, dusty memories. The story describes them as active wounds that literally become a part of your mind. They drive a wedge inside you, separating you from who you really are, from your true feelings. And this is what that prison looks like day to day. It's this relentless cycle. You're constantly replaying every moment, analyzing every single word someone said to you, imagining every possible mistake you could have made. And the result? You're completely and utterly exhausted, but your mind is still restless. There's just no off switch. And when you boil it all down, it comes to this one powerful idea: being trapped in a world no one else can even see. That's the real loneliness of it. You're living inside this complex, difficult reality, a prison made of your own thoughts. And to the outside world, it's totally invisible. It's a really deep kind of isolation. Which leaves us with this final, really powerful question to think about. If so many of our thoughts are just echoes from childhood, how do we ever learn to speak in our own voice? Knowing where it all comes from, that's step one, for sure. But the real journey, the real challenge, is figuring out how to quiet those echoes and start listening to, well, to ourselves. How do we find our own true voice right here, right now?